Good to see everybody, and welcome to the meeting. Got lots of good folks here. Can you hear me? All right. So we start out by going around and introducing everybody. I'm Glenn, WB5L, and I live on Gobbler's Knob. Y'all know where that's at, over on the west side in the Highlands. And this is Tem Moore. Go ahead, Tim.
Tem Moore, N5KWL, and I'm from Rogers.
Tim's going to be giving our presentation this evening. And we'll start with Alan and then go back there in the back and go around that way. Alan, go ahead.
I'm Al Katz, Washburn, Q Echo 0 Quebec Foxtrot Oscar. I know half the guys anyway, you guys know half me too, so. And I just wishing along, trying to get better at it. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
86 OQ, Alan is Markham. I live on the east side, from the corner from Medfield Golf Club.
I'm Ken Murray, and I am K6RLA, and I live just down the street from Mark, on the east side, coming on down the east side.
I'm Greg, KF5TIM from Rogers, and my wife Linda.
Linda's nuts.
Yes, every step of the way.
Paul, KC7D2Y, Rogers.
My name is Riccardo Giacomo Papa, and I'm from Sinerchia, Italy. Oh, wait a minute, that's my ancestors. I live in Tonytown now. Kilo Golf 5, Mike Whiskey Golf.
I'm Don, KC7DC from Bella Vista.
Jess?
Jess Weber, W0MIX. I live in McDonald County.
KC5JBJ, Jeff, and about a half mile south of here.
All right.
John, N5SU, Elkins.
Jesse, KG5YJV. My wife Thelma, and a couple visitors, Joanne and Chris.
Hello, ladies.
I'm
Chris?
But I'm Chris Slingover, it's good to meet everybody.
Alan? Go ahead.
Andy Bauer, Twin Grad from Asheville, KG5SCI.
Randy?
My name's Randy. I'm from Bentonville, and this is my wife Suzanne, N5 Elemental.
Good to have you here, Randy.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Back in the blue shirt?
This is Jim, KD5RXI in Centerton. Got my son Brady.
All right. Go ahead, Steve.
Steve, AB9YM, back in the far western edge of Bella Vista, almost in gravel.
Go ahead.
Eric, W4ALW. I'm still in Rogers, but I will be up here soon.
You're moving up to Bella Vista. All right.
And this is my wife, Alicia.
Nice to see you again. Chris?
KG5SG2, East Side of Bella Vista, off of
I'm RK5XH, just southeast of Fayetteville, Ballers.
I'm Paul, KK5II from Springdale.
Don, K5DB, Springdale.
I'm Derek, W9DTJ from Midville.
K5SAW, Steve, Bella Vista.
K5QBX, Fred, Bella Vista.
QBX. Frank, did you say hello?
I apologize. K5SWN, Frank from Bella Vista.
With a new call sign.
With a new call
FWN.
sign.
All right. And just came in and barely got the breath is Chuck and Lori. And I'll let Chuck, well, Lori, go ahead, and I'll let Chuck, he's busy. You go first.
November 1, Romeo, November, India, Lori.
It's your turn, Chuck.
Where?
Anywhere.
W0CEH.
All right. Did I miss anybody? Good to see everybody here this evening. Tonight we're blessed to have Tem Moore, N5KWL here. Tim loves to work on repeaters, and he's built quite a repeater system in the Northwest Arkansas area, and he's going to give us a presentation about that. And some of them have digital, and some of them don't, and some of them have both. So I hope you enjoy it, and after that we'll take a short break. We have DVDs from last meeting. I've got 2 left. They're $6 a piece. If you want one, sign-up sheet is right there, and we'll make as many as we need. But I've got 2, so anything past that, we'll order them for you. How about that? There are. I haven't seen them yet, but I understand that the audio is better than if you were here last month. You could hardly hear the gentleman speaker because he had such a low voice, and the audio on the DVDs is going to be a lot better than actually being here, so that's good. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
I don't know if you need that or you just use that mic.
Well, I think this is for the camera.
Okay, that's good.
And I'll use this. First of all, I was real excited about coming here. I'm originally from North Louisiana, but most of my adult life I've lived in Little Rock. And I got a really bad taste in my mouth with amateur radio clubs. They just, I don't know why, but there was a lot of infighting and everything. And to see a club like this one that's growing, which is unbelievable, and thriving, it speaks to, I would say, the leadership of the club and of course the members too. So I would really like to applaud you, and I'm honored to speak to y'all tonight. Does anybody recognize that picture? Right. Do you know what bridge? Right. I just had to put that up there. I thought that was so cool. That's the Highway 12 bridge before they flooded the lake, obviously. I saw that online one day, and you can look at the dress. I would say that's probably 1960s or, yeah, the dress, and I just thought that was really neat, so I just put it up there for a conversation piece. Okay, so we're gonna get started, and I understand I have to press the down button to go forward, so that suits me just fine. Here's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background, so you'll know why I can stand up here and say the things I do. Okay. And then I want to apologize, okay, up front, because I'm from North Louisiana. And I've been up here for over 40 years now. I've never lost the North Louisiana accent. And it's a good thing I have this mic because my words are pretty lazy and all that, and you would probably have a hard time. Another thing I want to apologize about is I've got a terrible memory for names and call signs. So if I walk up to you and you introduced yourself and I forgot your name, please don't take it personally. I'm getting worse and worse, it seems, and I think age may have something to do with it, but I've always been this way. And I think that's all I want to apologize for. I dressed casual. I hope that was okay, and I noticed everyone else did. While I have your attention, I have 2 soapbox things that I would like to mention, and I imagine I'm preaching to the choir, but I just want to stress the importance of the ARRL, our national, I call it our lobby. I think most people don't realize it is an unfathomable amount of money that all our spectrum for amateur radio use is worth. And the only lobby we have right now is our team of lawyers with ARRL, and they have real good communication policies with the FCC. But without them, we probably would have lost a lot more than we've lost now. And I know it's kind of spooky what's going on, and I don't mean it to be a downer, but if you enjoy the hobby, I recommend highly that you spend the little dab of money that it costs to be a member. I don't always agree with ARRL. In some ways, I think they've lost touch with mainstream amateur radio, but you know, they're up there in Connecticut and they're kind of snobby and all that, so we might expect that. But they're a good outfit, and they're the only one that we have as far as amateur radio operators. So that's kind of my soapbox on that. And I also want to bring up the fact that for years and years, has anyone in here ever tried to get a repeater frequency coordinated? No one? No one? Aha, Steve back there. Well, it's been a real nightmare. The database was just awful. Nobody really seemed to know, and I'm not slighting anybody on the repeater council, but about 2 years ago, I think it's been 2 years ago, I think it was in Russellville, there was a council meeting there. In the Arkansas Repeater Council are the guys, it's all volunteer, and they coordinate repeater frequencies. Now, let me just say up front here, there's a lot more to amateur radio than repeaters, okay? But it just happens to be kind of what I like and I enjoy doing. But without them, we would have, I guess if you will, turf wars on frequencies, and we wouldn't want that. Repeater owners like in another city would be interfering with the guys, say, you know, in a city 20, 30 miles away. So it's really important that we have that group. Now, it is not a law that you coordinate a repeater. It's strictly volunteer. So the Arkansas Repeater Council doesn't have authority. They can coordinate a repeater and they can de-coordinate a repeater, but the thing is, and I know Steve, anything he's done is coordinated. If it's coordinated, if you have an issue with someone else and they're not coordinated, then they have to fix it. Go to a different frequency or something like that to get right. But I'm telling you all this to lead you up. It's the Repeater Council has been dysfunctional for many, many years. And out of regret, you know, nobody would take the job, so I took it as the state coordinator for the Arkansas Repeater Council. And there is a genius in Little Rock right now. His name is Josh Carroll, and I think it's N5JLC or K5JLC is his call. He writes banking software, so he's a coder. And he's working on a website now that, you know, if you dealt with repeaters and all that and built them and tried to get something coordinated, you would just really get excited about what I'm talking about. Maybe Steve will, I'm not sure. No, he already knows about it. But anyway, it's going to be an automated site where you go in there and you give your coordinates, the city you're in, the name, the call sign of the repeater, and you click on that and it will automatically ferret through all the frequencies for Arkansas. Now, if it's a city or a city that's on the fringe of Arkansas like we are in Missouri, then a letter, actually it's going to be an email, will automatically be sent to the coordinators in Missouri. And there will also be letters sent or emails sent to the ones in Oklahoma. And then they look at their bank and all they have to do their stuff manually. Arkansas is going to be the first state to have a fully automated repeater coordination website. It's just going to be unreal. And this guy probably is going to be a high commodity when he gets done because everybody's going to be wanting to use this software. But anyway, that's going to make the process really fast and fair for everybody. Not only that, if you own a repeater and you look at the website, well, you go, that's not right. You know, they spelled something wrong, or that's not the landmark where my repeater is. Every repeater owner will have a password and a login name. They can go in there and live make changes on the site, and it will appear on all the listings and everything instantaneously. So they don't have to call a repeater guy, send a letter and all that kind of repeater council guy, send a letter and all that, I've changed this. And it's been such a hassle that a lot of repeater owners have not kept up their information. And hopefully that's going to change. So if any of you guys know people that have repeaters, pass this on to them. We're trying to get the database squared away. We don't have good emails and phone numbers on a lot of them, but hopefully that's going to be changed. Well, that is my soapbox. Thanks for bearing with me. I know I have your attention right now, and I just wanted to get those over. I have set up a linking repeater system. It all started out, John Nordland with the health department knows me. I did the AR link system in Little Rock. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but it's a link system in Little Rock. And, I know what I'm not doing here. I was going to give you just a real quick background. I was in medical sales most of my life. I've always been interested in electronics. I started dabbling around probably 40, 50 years ago in commercial radio. I just love infrastructure, putting all that stuff together. Well, I got my amateur radio license, and that allowed me to do a whole lot more, okay? But my last job was with AWIN. Is anybody familiar with AWIN? It's Arkansas Wireless Information Network. It's a trunked radio system that covers the entire state, but it's a wide area trunk system. And a trunk system works like there's a whole bunch of radios at this particular site, and you're talking to somebody, and this is mainly for public service officials, state police, first responders, things like that. But a trunk system's sitting there with all these radios, and like one officer, goes 10-4 or something like that, and he's on one channel. Well, when he talks back again, it may go to another channel. So it uses all those banks of radios that nobody ever gets a busy, but everybody hears. And it's made it really hard for scanner enthusiasts because of trunk systems. You got to get one of these scanners that follows them around and all that. But that's what AWIN was, and that was a really fun job for me. I don't really have any professional radio experience, but I got to go to Schaumburg, Illinois, where Motorola is, and they gave me a lot of training on master sites and all that. And so it was a good experience. So, I guess I was a professional at one time for about 3 years doing that. So maybe that'll give me a little bit more credibility. Okay, well, I've apologized. I've told you what I've done. And what I was telling you earlier is, and I said I was going to stand right here. I'm so sorry. It all started when John Nordland wanted me to build a repeater system for the Northwest Arkansas Hospital Group, and we did it at Mercy Medical Center. And there was a grant that funded the equipment, and I put it together. We had some volunteers. Anybody know Stan Ross? Stan's a CW enthusiast, and he works there at Mercy. Yeah, and he's the one that goes around mobiles doing CW. I just can't imagine that. I can't even do it sitting down. But anyway, Stan was involved in that, and we had that repeater up, and that was for the Northwest Arkansas Hospital region. Well, we found out Mercy, it looks like it's way up on a hill when you're on 49, but when you start going up New Hope, you find out what a hole that really is in. So that didn't really have a great deal of range, and the hospital region goes all the way to Harrison. So the only people really that could use the Mercy machine were all the hospitals, and they do drills. By the way, hospitals, the health department has set hospitals with ham radio stations now. The health department is the largest served agency that ham radio has. They are always asking for help. And because of that, all these, and I don't know if y'all know this, the guy that headed up the Department of Health, Halbertson, Dr. Halbertson, and he was an avid ham radio operator. So they have the biggest HF station you ever want to see in Little Rock. I don't know if anybody's ever driven down Markham and seen that huge Mosley beam up on the health department, but that's their HF rig, and they can talk to health departments all over the country on there. But anyway, that being said, that was kind of the deal that spurred me on. I kind of like supporting the hospitals. And we got it going. And then, like Eureka Springs couldn't get into it, like Grab it was kind of tough. Don't know about the hospital in Bella Vista, it wasn't here at the time. But anyway, it didn't serve all of the Northwest Arkansas hospital division. So on my own, I just started doing a lot of this other stuff, and it ended up being what it is today. The first one that went up was Eureka Springs, and that engulfed the Eureka Springs Hospital, but Harrison couldn't get into it. We put up a repeater, and I say we, got help on it, in Green Forest. And Harrison, the hospital, still couldn't hit the repeater. And so we went up, the guy who's the IT manager, Drew, K5MMW, I believe. He's got a new call now, and I don't remember that one. But we went to Harrison, and we looked at their station, and we were standing there where their station is in Harrison. I had my handy, and I could hit Green Forest on my handy, but their mobile radio wouldn't do it. So we looked at the connector. I don't know who installed it, but we looked at the connector, and it was really shady going from the coax to the back of the little dual band FM radio. And we replaced it, and we found a smoking gun there. It was very poorly installed. And kerchunk, nothing happened. And I could still kerchunk it with my handy talkie on a half a watt. So we knew something was up. So we went out to the antenna, and we undid all the waterproofing. It was one of these little Comet antennas, a little vertical, and took the connector out. And Comets have SO, what's the female version of a PL259? Yeah, it was the female version of that. It had an end connector on the end of the cable, and that end connector, the outer shield, was jammed up in the hole where the SO goes. So all that time, they never had anything hooked up. Turned out after we got that working, they could have hit the Eureka Springs repeater. So we went through all that for nothing, but it's still cool having the system link over to Harrison. So we've got real good coverage. In a little while, I'll put some coverage maps up if you're interested. And I guess I'm here mainly to talk about that system. But anyway, I don't do any of this stuff because I'm a good guy and I want to set up things for everybody to use. I do it because it's fun and I enjoy doing it. And it is a pure joy to me when people use it. So that being said, if y'all want to see some pictures, we'll kind of go through and look at some of our sites. Does that sound like a fun thing to do? See if I can drive this backwards thing here. I think I got a pointer. No, I have it backwards. There we go. Oh, I'm not gonna talk about this slide. That's about the repeater cancel. We're gonna skip over that. Does anyone use Repeater Book? It's a cool site. I like it. If you go to Repeater Book, not the app, on your PC or Mac, and go to their website and bring up Arkansas, you can see linked systems right in the middle there. And if you click on it, this is what you get. And let's try my handy dandy little deal. You know, of course, Mercy's the first one. We've got Bentonville, Green Forest, Winslow, Springdale. By the way, that's at my house, Springdale. I couldn't hit any of the repeaters. I had to have one there for me. And of course, Eureka Springs. I could barely hear, I can hear Benton with the Bentonville repeater real well from my house, but it's kind of iffy where I get into it. But anyway, it shows all the ones, and these are all the analog ones. There are also some digital repeaters in there too.
So is that, you're speaking of Dodd Mountain?
Yes. Yeah, Dodd Mountain's really kind of between Springdale and Rogers. Since I'm from Rogers, I put it there, so I'm going to call it Rogers. but well, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm talking about, I have a digital on Rogers. It's not analog. We're thinking about maybe moving the one at Mercy to Dodd Mountain because it would have such better range. But they wanted it there because they have emergency backup power. But I will tell you this, the way the system works is Mercy is sitting there It's a dumb repeater. And I'm not trying to be funny. It has no fancy controller. It's a Kenwood. I love Kenwood repeaters. And all the other repeaters that are out there have little radios, and we'll show you some pictures. And they're tuned just like a mobile radio or handheld would be to go to the hospital. Okay, so when you talk on, say, the Bentonville repeater, the one on Miller Church Road, it keys that repeater up and also keys up a little transceiver that's got a Yagi antenna pointing towards Mercy, and it goes through Mercy, and then when it goes to Mercy, it goes out to all the others. So that it's a real simple, it's kind of a poor man's linking system, and that's the way it works. It is very much like a hub, and if Mercy were to go down, all those individual repeaters would be on their own. So that's another good reason to have Mercy where it is on standby power, because if you could still talk on all the outlying repeaters, but they wouldn't be linked together. They'd all be just separate repeaters without Mercy. So it is the hub, exactly, Randy. But anyway, that's the list, and you can find that on the repeater book. Now here is, by the way, I've got pictures of all the repeaters except Mercy. And Mercy's in a rack full of stuff on the penthouse, and I just don't have a picture of this. But this is the repeater at my house. And you can tell there's not much to it. It's just 3 Motorola GM300 radios is all it is. They're old school FM radios. They're commercial, and an Astron power supply. And that's a mobile duplexer, which I shun using those, but there's nobody out there for me to interfere with out there. And then the controller, and that's the Highway 12. And again, that's mainly for my personal use. I mean, it's open to everybody. And believe it or not, some people actually, that's the best repeater for them to hit. It's just kind of crazy. These pictures aren't just, they're sort of washed out, but this is a green forest, obviously. And you can see, let's see, well, that's all the name tags. They're all labeled real well. That's the controller, power supply, and these little guys right here are duplexers, and duplexers do a lot of magic, but I won't get into that. You're actually you're transmitting and receiving at the same time on a repeater. It's just phenomenal what's going on. You're putting out literally volts, measured in volts of power out. And just 5 megahertz away, you've got a receiver listening to something on the order of maybe 0.3 microvolts, a really good receiver. So, I mean, it's like David and Goliath. So the magic is done in those cavity duplexers, and they're just tuned cavities. There's 2 on the transmit side and 2 on the receive side, but without duplexers, you couldn't do repeaters at all. So that's Green Forest. Y'all are the first person to ever get a tour of all these sites, by the way. This is the one, what is that road? Pumpkin Hollow and, what's that road that's, yeah, it's Miller Church Road, but Lowe's in Bentonville. What's that road? Peach Orchard, yeah. Peach Orchard, and you go up Pumpkin Hollow to get up there. I think that's such a blast. And this site, this is a beautiful site, and I don't know if anybody has ever heard of Jerry Clark. Okay, there's a gentleman that knows him. He's a very, very fine, generous man. He dated Alice Walton, from what I understand. But he used to own all the tower sites that were sold to Jay, and I forget his wife's name, Bunyard, and they live in DeQueen, Arkansas. And there's a gentleman named Chris Daniel who oversees all these sites. They're all over the state. Chris is a ham, and much to my joy, I like to do this stuff. Chris wants to have a ham radio at every site he's got, a ham radio repeater, because hams they take care of everything. If something needs to be done at one of the buildings, we usually do it and don't even say anything about it. But I'm saying all that is Jerry Clark still owns one tower, and it's the one in Bentonville.
He's been very good to all of us
He's
in the past.
He is. That's the only site. He just sold one that he had on Mount Gaylor, but he still has this one, and he lets me be on there rent-free. And I do everything I can to help Jerry. Like we had an electrical problem there not too long ago. But that site, I live out Point 12 on Beaver Lake. When I'm driving all those windy roads around War Eagle, I can hear this site there and get into it. It's just a phenomenal site, and it really favors Bella Vista, so you guys make use of it. The audio levels were really low on it, and I spent about 4 or 5 hours, I think it was yesterday, getting all those levels set, and now it sounds good. It's loud and everything. But what we're looking at here is, there's the duplexer. This is just a different brand. And this little repeater is a little self-contained repeater by Motorola. There's a power supply. And that link radio I was telling you about at every site, it's right there. And this little cavity right here protects from interference from the link radio. When it transmits, it's kind of a pass cavity, and it just allows others, it keeps other signals from going up the feed line and mixing with the little transmitter on there. We want to be good RF neighbors to everybody. So that's Bentonville, and this is Eureka Springs, and I think I have another view of it here. Steve will recognize that. That is a Yaesu repeater, System Fusion. But this site right here is a D-Star, which is a digital vocoder mode, a lot of fun, and also the analog. And it's the only 2-meter machine in the system. And you can see there's that little Motorola right there. This is the analog part. And that little System Fusion right there, it's a little Yaesu repeater, does all the D-Star. And you can't see all the little goodies and everything. And there's, of course, your good old duplexer up there. Let me see, I think I've got another shot. This is all the networking at Eureka Springs. Those 4 boxes are lightning arresters. We have a switch here and a router. These sites are all connected by microwave. We're using off-the-shelf little microwave devices to link all these sites together now. And that's how the D-Star, it has to be on a gateway so you can talk to the world. Let me see if I got another shot on there. Okay, this is the Rogers D-Star repeater. And if you don't do D-Star, this won't get you excited at all. But there's a picture, and you can see, the switch and the router there too for it, because that one's on there. This is the newest. I used to have a repeater on Brentwood Mountain, and it's before you get to Winslow, and actually it's the base of Brentwood, the town. A lot of people say there is no Brentwood Mountain, but I think there is. But this has been moved to a place called Signal Hill, and it's Winslow. And Jerry Clark will tell you stories. During the Civil War, the Confederates used mirrors from Mount Sequoia in Fayetteville up to Signal Hill. Now that's why I love this site, the historical significance. They would relay messages by mirror and then down to Van Buren, Arkansas. So if you go to the Pea Ridge thing, I think there's a little bit on there. I tried Googling it and I couldn't find anything about it. But I thought it was really fascinating. But this one is a combined system, D-Star and analog, all running on one antenna. And let's see, I think I have some more pictures. They're not real good. This is, Steve would probably get a kick out of this. That's my amplifier and splitter, Steve, and a cavity down there to get rid of all the garbage that I'm getting from a Smith two-way site right next to me. Okay, this is of that repeater, this is the digital side, and this is ICOM equipment. And you can see the switch and batteries, and that is a little computer right there. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Raspberry Pis. I know you are, your hams. It's got a little Raspberry Pi in there. There's the router. And this is the controller for D-Star. That's the amplifier, because we're going through a combiner that combines them both, and it cuts the power in half. So we have to use amplifiers to get it. And even with amps, we're only getting, I think, 20 watts out on analog and 30 on D-Star. That's the analog part. You know, and that duplexer, by the way, is tuned to the mid of the two frequencies, the analog and the digital. So it's right in the middle. So we just have one duplexer for all that. And there's a little, I love cat controllers. And this is one of those little Motorola jobbies, and I got spare parts and stuff down there. At Winslow, that's our dish. We were talking about having microwave links. That's a 5.5 gig dish, and that little Yagi antenna is what points towards Mercy. Told you I'd show you a picture of that too. So when that little, let's see, you cannot see the little freestanding radio, the link radio I told you about, because it's inside that cabinet. But anyway, that's what that little radio is hooked up to, that Yagi antenna. Now, this is for my own glorification, okay? That's me. That's I spent, this was really a pain moving to this site. The reason I had to leave Brentwood is lightning kept wiping us out time after time after time. Apparently the ground system at Brentwood is not good. Copper theft played a big toll, I think, on that. The grounds on Signal Hill are excellent, but I have to contend with interference from Smith Two-Way next to me. But anyway, this is right after we dropped the gen pole. That's called a DB420. It's a UHF professional antenna. And Steve, correct me, it's slightly over 20 feet.
18 feet.
Is it 18? Darn, it sure seemed longer than that. And it looks like that's a head right there, but that's the beacon. But what I was going to tell you, I'm having a pity party. I spent about probably 10 hours total at 350 feet up there, getting the rope in the wind up there, getting the gen pole mounted, pulling the feed line up, and mounting that antenna. But I told you before, I love this stuff. So I'm a glutton for punishment. By the way, these antennas up here, one of the TV stations, I can't even tell you who it is, they're going to be broadcasting from that pretty soon. Most of the, like AETN is right down there in Winslow, the educational channel. I think it's going to be Channel 5, but I'm not sure. It's going to be broadcasting. Of course, in Garfield, they have translators there too for Channel 5, so you can get it either from Winslow or there. But let me see what else I got here. Oh, these are kind of interesting. And unfortunately, you can't really see it. There is a website you can go to if you're interested about coverage of a radio system. It's called Mobile Radio, or Radio Mobile, Radio Mobile. And a guy named Roger Coudet has this site, and it's free for hams to use. And you put down your lat and long, your effective radio power. There's all kinds of things you put in there, and how much line loss you have. That's the cable going up there, how many decibels you're losing and all that. And it'll calculate these patterns. And this is an overlay of 3 repeaters, and these are the 3 D-Star repeaters. But as you can see, that's Fort Smith down there. So if they can send mirror signals from Signal Hill down to Van Buren, I guess it's no big surprise that we have coverage. Last time I was at the MENA Hamfest, we could access the Brentwood repeater when it was there. This site is about 5 or so miles further south and has a much better northern range, although not much. But it does go east, as you can see, and the mountains pretty well block all this stuff. But this is Winslow, and that's Dodd Mountain, and that's Eureka Springs. So that's the D-Star digital. And Don is going to get a D-Star radio, he's told me. So we're going to have fun on D-Star. D-Star is a really fun digital mode. It's really an amateur radio mode. It's not commercial like DMR, and I'm not downgrading DMR, but we tried DMR on 2 of these repeaters running alongside D-Star, and it just didn't work. It didn't work out well at all. So I'm a D-Star lover, so it's going to stay that way. These are the analog sites right here. Oh shoot. Okay, I know y'all can't see it, but there's Green Forest, Eureka, Bentonville on Miller Church, Mercy Med Center, and the new Winslow site. And if we go down one more, you can see the coverage area on that. That's a pretty big footprint. I know you can't make it. Let me see, there's another view. Okay, that was the Google Earth view. This is just the map view, and it's a little bit easier to make out. But gosh, I'm having a hard time too, y'all. You know, there's Fort Smith. It gets on up into, there's Springfield right there. Gosh, I'm sorry, it's really hard to make out. Let me see if I can see any of these here. Oh, I can tell you this little mark over here is Western Grove. I think that's a little bit south of Harrison. So that's the coverage. You're looking at the coverage of the entire system. So it does cover northwest Arkansas. But the mountains create all these little places here. And those are shadows. You can't get around them. And I love it. That's what I love about Arkansas, hills and mountains. But it kind of messes you up. You don't have those round circular coverage areas. Okay, I'm winding down, y'all. I want to talk a little bit about repeater etiquette. Nobody makes the rules about how to talk on the repeaters or anything like that, but as amateur radio operators, I think we have a responsibility to set a good example, because there's an unbelievable amount of hams that have taken their ticket and they've got mic fright really bad, and they won't get on the air, and if they do, they're going to be really timid, and they're going to make kind of a fool out of themselves. I heard one guy, he gave his ID and then he said, "For ID." And I don't know, that's just a pet peeve with me. Everybody here remembers the CB craze, and we get confused a lot of times with CBers, which, you know, it's not CB at what happened to it. You know, it was fun. I had a CB when I was a kid, but and I'm not going to blame the truckers either, but it just ended up being a cesspool, an RF cesspool, if you will. But a lot of those habits are brought into the amateur bands because of ex-CBers. They want to do the good buddy. I hadn't heard any of that. They want to do the 10-4, and they want to put a lot of excess talk in there, jargon and stuff. This is amateur radio. You know, let's just talk plain language. It's FM. It's clear as a bell. You don't need Q signals. I hear a lot of Q signals and things like that. There's no reason to say call sign for ID. And that's one thing I have not done, but probably all the other bad habits I probably have. Another thing that repeater owners really do hate is kerchunking. Everybody know what kerchunking is. You just, you know, you key it and you listen to that. Well, I keep a pretty close ear on things, and I'm trying to make things right. And right now I've got some kerchunking that's intentional, and some of it is being generated on the Mercy input. There's something going on with Intermod or something in the area. But anyway, if you key your mic, it's okay to kerchunk. Okay, the repeater's there, but then talk, you know, because a lot of people just kerchunk. You'll hear like 10 kerchunks, and then they'll finally talk, which surprises me that they have the nerve to ID after doing all that. But anyway, what we do, John Nordland with the health department personally has, I think, close to 1,000 amateurs under, and I say under his belt, that he has given the exams. Well, he's got volunteer examiners, but he's taught the classes over his years of doing this. And John, by the way, is the tactical communications coordinator for the Arkansas Department of Health, and he's a ham. So he's taught all these classes, but there is, you guys would be shocked to know how many people out there have their ticket but haven't done anything with it. And so I say that just so we can be good examples. When they listen, you know, they won't get on there and say, "This is KG5 so-and-so for ID." You know, teach them good habits. And I condemn on-the-air correction. Never, never, never. I would never do that. If someone got on the air and started swearing and carrying on, I wouldn't say anything on the air. I would do everything I could to contact him, maybe via email or some other way. But anyway, that's my my little soapbox on etiquette. And I think the next slide is that. Thanks for having me, and I would love to hear any kind of questions, no matter how silly or dumb. There are no dumb questions, yes, Steve.
You actually climbed that tower, huh?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I tell you, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I told you I was interested in commercial radio. And I bought an 80-foot tower, and I thought, oh, this is a piece of cake. Borrowed a gin pole from my friend there in Little Rock. And the first 2 sections was no sweat. I had it attached to a house bracket. This is Ron 25. And I got up there, and I attached the gin pole, and I got that section pulled up, and I locked it on, the 3rd section, but I didn't have the nerve to walk up to the top of the 3rd section to move the gin pole. I just went crazy. I have severe fear of heights. That was obviously several years ago. Now, you know what's funny? I've got a friend who's a pilot, and he's scared of heights. That's what kills me. It's just, but if I'm on the edge of the building, I feel very uncomfortable. When I'm on a tower and I'm strapped on, it's great. The view's wonderful and all that. But anyway, what I did is after it was constructed, it was an 80-foot tower, and it had a commercial VHF antenna on it. And I was dabbling around commercial radio, phone patches, and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have my ticket at the time. But anyway, I thought, this is crazy, man. I can't do anything. I can't repair my antenna. I can't change anything. So I borrowed a climbing belt from my buddy, and I went up about 30 feet, and I hung there for probably about 30 minutes. And I never got to the point where I could let both hands go. I let one hand go. So that was okay. So I went up another 10, and I just kept repeating the process. Probably took 4 or 5 hours to do this, and then got up to the 80-foot mark. And I was strapped on to the tower and everything, and I could barely let one hand go, but the other one was glued to the tower. So that was the beginning of it. You know, I'd gotten over that. So, you know, phobias you can get over them if you're motivated to do it. And all the stuff I do, if I don't climb the tower, it doesn't get done. And I certainly can't pay a climber. Those guys are very, very expensive. And I don't climb for hire. I don't do it. I would help any ham, but I wouldn't. I'd do it for free. But I will. People commercially have asked me to do things. And by the way, Chris Daniel has a lot of commercial repeaters and everything. And he's the guy that runs all the sites for the Bunyards that own all these sites. And I do commercial work for Chris, obviously at no charge. And I put a bunch of those in. He's got one over at Green Forest that a lot of chicken farmers and such, there's a whole group of guys over there that use it. And so that's there. But anyway, thank you for your question, Steve. Yes, sir.
Have you heard anything about a link system statewide?
You know, there was supposed to be and is hopefully a microwave backbone that will come alive in the entire state of Arkansas. We've got the first part of it up here, and it goes all the way down now to Winslow, so we could easily hop off there and go perhaps to either Nebo or Magazine with this hop. And what we're doing, this sounds real complicated, but it's not. You saw the little dish antenna, and it's got a little, it's a radio, it's a modem, and it's a router all in one little package. It's got little LEDs on it for signal strength, and they're $100. They're not expensive. They're off the shelf. And these are our little 5.5 gig, and that's the band we've chosen. And we're doing it part 15, not part 97. We do have a group of frequencies in the 5.5 gig band for amateur use, but we're not using those because we're doing a favor for people like Chris. He's streaming audio to a radio station in Eureka Springs right now, and he's using our internet backbone. We like to take care of the guys that let us have the sites. And I think we're doing the same thing somewhere else. I can't remember. That's that old age thing going on there. But anyway, what we're trying to do is get a statewide, but that is a major undertaking. And frankly, we hadn't found enough people that are interested in joining in. And that's why it really hadn't gone anywhere. But we have the beginnings of one up here, if anybody wants to play. We've got a wonderful site, and this is one that Chris manages. What's that mountain? Kessler Mountain. And we've got a dish up there, but we hadn't linked it up yet. And we can get it up there. But what we're using it for right now, what this link system was going to be, this 5.5 gig system, is once you've got data, you can run anything on it. You can run voice, you can run digital modes, you can run video, all that kind of stuff. It's the ultimate communication. You can do anything with it. So that's our goal, and primarily there is a statewide effort. We've got D-Star in Jonesboro, in Mountain View, of course the ones I showed you up here, and I put all those in. I've worked with the health department, and I found out what they were paying me, and I quit. I was just incensed when I realized that. They sent me money via direct pay, and I finally put a pencil to what I was taking home, and it was terrible. But we've got one in Monticello, in Camden. So we're getting these D-Star sites, and the idea is D-Star radios in all the hospitals. D-Star has got a really neat function. It's called DRATS. This guy wrote the program, and it's a emergency communications software package. And with D-Star, you can send slow data, slow data, but you can send, they've got in the DRATS, they've got all the, what is the ICS, the forms, you know, ICS, surely, what now? The command structure, right. In order to be a volunteer in amateur radio now, you've got to go through those courses. And DRATS has got all those forms that you need in there, so it doesn't take up data. You just fill them out. It just sends the data, and all that data pops out on a form somewhere else, like maybe Command Center or something like that. So that's why the hospital is wanting to do the D-Star. We've got most of the hospitals hooked up analog and the D-Star, but it's slow going because we need help. But the longest jump we've done so far is about 35 miles. That's pretty good. Oh no. And these little things will do up to a watt. And what's really funny is when you put the gain of the dish, which is 30 dB, not dBi, but dBd, and you got two dishes on either end, well, that's 60 dB a gain. So you add that with the 1 watt from the radio, the ERP is effective radiated power, is a kilowatt. So in theory, you know, you'd think it'd burn you, but it doesn't. I mean, that's just the link. And then there's path loss. Microwave stuff's really fascinating. I mean, what used to be called microwave, you know, would be what we're using on our cell phones now. But now it's really getting up there. And that's what I'm talking about when we have a wealth of frequencies at our disposal to use. And a lot of this data stuff is just a great way to use some of that. So we're making use of the 5 gig band, but we're doing it part 15. We can use high powers and things like that when we go part 97 on some of these frequencies, but we're not limited to those. Thanks for that question.
Are there more, is there more traffic on D-Star than DMR?
I really don't know. I got very frustrated with DMR, and I'll tell you why. It's a commercial. It's Moto Turbo. It has two time slots. Remember the early phones were TDMA and CDMA? Does anybody remember that? DMR is TDMA. So they actually have 2 time slots in there in their signal, in their carrier. And it's all done with a time domain, really precise timing. So you can have 2 conversations going on there in one place. But because of that, the audio is not just terribly good. In all the repeaters that we've done, a guy reverse engineered the DMR. And by the way, DMR is a Motorola word, but they didn't come up with, I'm sorry, Moto Turbo is a Motorola term. That's their trade name for DMR, digital mobile radio. But anyway, that you can have two conversations going at once on the repeater, and we've been building them with a little thing called an MMDVM, and it stands for MMDVM, multimode. Anyway, it ends up being modem, but it will do P25, which is what the public service people use, and that's the digital mode that. Who did I work for? I told you guys about. AWIN, Arkansas Wireless Information Network. It'll do Yaesu System Fusion, their little flavor of digital radio. Kenwood's got theirs. And did I say DMR? Of course, D-Star, it does all those. But we found out that having all those modes available in one repeater, they don't play together well. So if I get on there with D-Star and I hook it up to a reflector somewhere and all that traffic's going on D-Star, then the DMR guys can't get into it. So it doesn't work. And if anybody wants to put up a DMR repeater, they're a lot of fun, but it's counterintuitive how to program your radios, except for SU back there. He knows how to do it, and he has a lot of fun with the mode. The two, the one in Eureka and Rogers were DMR and D-Star, but I found out they don't work well together, so since I'm a D-Star guy, they won out.
Did you turn the Eureka back on for the EVP?
No, I turned it off. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I got in D-Star about 2 months ago and had to basically educate myself.
Yes.
I'm gonna give you a delayed question.
Sure.
Registration on D-Star.
Oh, boy.
Now, am I correct that your repeaters run the IRC DDB?
Correct.
I ended up having to register through Oklahoma because I couldn't figure out, is it possible to register through an IRC DDB?
Yes. Without just driving everybody crazy with what's going on here, when D-Star first came available, the only infrastructure you could get was ICOM equipment. And everybody said, oh, it's proprietary and all that. But the codec, D-Star is a codec. There's only one company that writes codecs, and every one of them has been written. And the codec is what sits in your radio, and it receives the actual digital. I mean, it's digital all the way to your radio, and it's what changes it to audio that you can understand. And those vocoders, by the way, are made for human voices. They don't reproduce music or anything. And if you listen to somebody on a cell phone, you know, they use a codec also, and there where a loud band is, it's just garbled, you know, because it can't decode all that. Gosh, I'm getting off track here, I'm afraid. But that's all that was available, and you had to sign your repeater up on the Trust server. And that was all run by a bunch of guys, and I don't know where they were, TIT, I think they were in Texas. That was a call sign, and they got power hungry, and they made it very difficult with all their demands for anybody to get their D-Star repeater on the worldwide system. So Hans Bertram, and he's not from this country, wrote what's called the IRCDDB, which means Internet Relay Chat Distributed Database. Okay, so in other words, when you think distributed database, nothing's centralized. It's free, it goes everywhere. And you do not have to be registered on D-Star to use an IRC DDB. But getting registered on D-Star, you have to go to somebody who has a US Trust server, and they don't make it easy on you. I'm sorry to say. The best thing to do, if you ever buy a D-Star radio, if you get it from a place like HRO, they have a D-Star system at all their locations, and they're set up on the US Trust. Register with them. Like I did it. I went through all that mess. I went to the one in Atlanta and called them up, would you put me on your registration? Once you're registered on anybody's repeater, It has to be a trust repeater. You're free to use everything. And now the IRC DDB can connect with all the trust ones too, as long as they run their server with IRC DDB add-on package. I know it's crazy. D-Star there, it's a fabulous mode, but there's so much disinformation and old information. It's really hard. And what I would advise anybody to do if they want to do that is I would do a class or something like that. Let somebody who's learned through the ropes to get you straight, because it's really a lot of fun. With D-Star, you can have a 7-digit number, same number you use for DMR. And is your name Andy? It says on your shirt, I love it. I wish everybody had one of those. Andy could be in Dallas on a D-Star repeater, and he could chunk that one. I told you not to chunk. But see, when you could chunk on D-Star, it sends out your call sign, your name, all that kind of stuff. So D-Star is the only mode that you don't have to vocally ID, because it goes out. Now, it's a courtesy to do it, and a lot of people do. But say Andy, and he chunked one in, where did I say, Dallas? Okay, I get my radio, and I dial his 7-digit number on my pad, and it routes my call to him. It's routed automatically because it knows where he is. That was the last place he keyed up. That's just an example of what you can do on D-Star. It's a fun mode, but I'm not here to preach that and all that. It's a fun mode, but the learning curve is like this because there's so much confusing information. And like I said, if anybody's ever interested, I'll do a class and I'll put it down to earth for everybody and do hands-on, actually program radios and all that. But the best D-Star repeaters are the homebrew ones, and that's what Rogers is, and that's what the one in Eureka Springs. They're homebrew. It's not a ICOM. This guy reversed engineered the D-Star system the way it works, and they work well. When you hit your radio, there's something called BER, or bit error rate, okay? And because all that information is digital, when you key a homebrew D-Star repeater, it will send back in text what your bit error rate is, and ultimately you want 0.0. But if it's like, 0.5 or even 1.5 or something like that, it's still going to be clear. But anyway, enough of that. Did I answer your question, Andy? And I think you guys have a really outstanding club, and I'd kind of like to come back as not a speaker sometime.